Super, super excited to have you tonight. I know we've been trying to nail you down through a super busy schedule for the last several months, the better part of a year, really.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does this room look familiar to you?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit? Okay. Awesome. Well, guys, this is Amanda Kruse. She began a company called Discount Divas. Just as Michael said, it's an online Facebook boutique. You have how many followers now, or how many people in the group?
180,000, I think.
Okay,
right
180,000 people in this group, and they sell clothes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight and how they got started. So when you first began Discount Divas, you actually weren't really in a business mindset, right? You were just, I want to get some cheaper clothes for me and my friends, okay? And suddenly Discount Divas was born, but it didn't start that way. So how did it start? Can you take us through like the earlier days?
Yes, I'm going to take it way back,
Okay.
if that's okay. So a lot of people don't know. They think that I started Discount Divas as Discount Divas, and that's actually not the case. So I started a business called The Collection. It actually wasn't a business. It was an idea that I had. I was living in Valdosta, Georgia at the time, and I had taken a nursing contract there. And I was working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. And then for the rest of the week, I was like, what am I doing with my time? I have nothing to do here. I don't know anyone. And there was no good shopping. And so I decided that I could buy clothing for me and my friends wholesale, and I would keep a small for myself and then just sell the rest to my girlfriends. Well, not to my girlfriends, but like online on a website. And I would just tell my friends to go there. And so I started a Shopify site. And it was terrible. I couldn't get anyone to go there, much less buy anything. And so it quickly failed in Georgia. I decided, you know what, this isn't working. I'm trying to push people to go to this website. Nobody wants to go. What am I doing? So fast forward a little bit. I was dating Brandon at the time, and I was waiting to get a job here in Huntsville as a nurse. And I got a job in the emergency department at Huntsville Hospital. And at that point, I thought, Brandon's working 7 days a week. He's an entrepreneur. He didn't have time to hang out with me 4 days a week. And so I decided, why don't I try it again? But let me do something different, because what I did before wasn't working. And so I decided to add all my friends that I thought would be interested in buying something into a closed Facebook group, and then just post the rest of the items there and let them comment and just say oh, I want that. I want one of those. And I told them to comment sold and their email address. And then I would go send them a PayPal invoice. So that's kind of how it began.
And how many friends was this? Just to give an idea.
I mean, I don't really have a lot of friends, probably 10. Okay. I added coworkers. So word quickly got around, right? 10, 20 people, and then I knew I needed more people to sell more things, and so I started incentivizing people to add their friends. So I would say if you add 10 of your friends, I'll give you a headband or a piece of jewelry or something for free, and that's when it really started growing.
And so before this time, you didn't really have any business experience, right? This was
Lord,
the first
no.
thing kind of on accident.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely no business experience.
Okay, and you're working for a nurse at the time.
Yep.
As a nurse at the time, and then you this thing gets out of control, right? It's something that you're no longer just able to handle on your off days, and so you're realizing it's going to take more and more of your time, and so you actually went part-time as a nurse to kind of focus on that a little more. Is that right?
Yeah, so what happened is I had a job that you can't, I couldn't be on my phone while I was at work, right? I couldn't have my phone in my hand. I didn't work behind a desk. I couldn't sit there and post and respond to comments and things like that when I was at work. So I would be gone from my business for 12 hours at a time working, in the ER. And so what I found was during those 12 hours, I wasn't making any money. So I would leave work, go home, and I worked 3 in the afternoon to 3 in the morning. That's a normal shift in the ER. And so at 3 in the morning, I would get off and go home, and then I would start working on my business again, and I would start responding to my customers and posting new things. But what I found is the days that I had to work and I had to wait 12 hours to respond to a customer, I wasn't making any money. So I decided, I think I could be wrong on this, but I think I was around $20,000 a month in revenue when I decided to go part-time. at the hospital. And it's important to note, I think anyway, that at that point I'd hired my first employee. Because I knew I could pay an employee $8 an hour to do what I needed them to do while I was at the hospital. But in order for me to leave the hospital and go part-time, it was costing me $18 an hour. So I knew I could pay someone cheaper than leaving and working part-time. So, but yes, then I went part-time at the hospital.
Okay, and it's important to note too, I think, for everyone in the audience that $20,000 a month, you're doing these manual invoices, right? Anybody here ever created an invoice, like just one-off real quick?
Oh,
now make $20,000 in revenue based off $20, $30 items.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it adds up. So this is a tremendous amount of work that she's doing manually at first. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what kind of took the next jump for Divas from there?
So there are several steps that happened in between. I think one of the reasons that we were successful is I would do, and this is something we didn't talk about, but I would do anything to sell something. So it sounds crazy, but I went to a nursing home one time because they had an event where people would buy stuff, and I set up my shirts and I was like, does anybody want to buy anything, right? Because there was an opportunity there. We would go to Starbucks for local pickup. We would go to Chick-fil-A for local pickup once a week, and we really knew our customers and talked to them and gave them opportunity to interact and buy from us. And so, what was the question? Where was I going?
So we were at $20,000 a month, and you went part-time.
Yes.
And then what are the next steps from there for Divas?
Yeah. So after I hired someone, and I was in my house at this time. Just remember, not even a house. It was an apartment. I was in an apartment, and I hired someone, and I was like, crap, where am I going to put her? Like, what are we going to do? I didn't have any space. Was like out of space. And so I needed a place for my one employee to come at that time. And so I went to my now husband, who wasn't even, we engaged at that time, I don't even know. And I was like, can I have some space? You have like a huge building. Certainly there's a closet that you can like let me borrow, because I couldn't afford to pay rent. And he said, well, yeah, there's probably a closet. And literally this closet right here became the new Discount Divas headquarters. And so put all of our inventory in there. I set up a desk, and I sat on the floor because I let my employee have the desk because I thought it was really rude to not, have a desk for her to work at. And from that point, I knew that I was going to have to cut back at the hospital. I needed to focus on my business full time. But, there were challenges because I didn't have, I had my benefits through the hospital. I had insurance. Like, how am I going to pay for my rent and my insurance and, feed my dog at the end of the day? I didn't have kids, but I had bills to pay. And so at that point, I went to a PRN status at the hospital, so I could keep my benefits. If I was having a bad week, I could pick up a shift at the hospital, make some extra money. But I quickly found that when I was focused on my business, we were making money. The next skyrocket thing is we hired another really good person. And I think that that's instrumental, a good person to work right next to you. And then Brandon, we have this, it's not a joke, it's real life, but we were sitting at a baseball, Brandon's dad plays baseball. And so we were sitting at one of his baseball games, and he's like, how's your little business going? It's just making conversation with me. And I was like, well, I think it's really good. We're selling $1,000 worth a day worth of clothing. And he looked at me like I said something crazy, like I won the lottery or something. He looked at me and he was like, what? And I said, yeah, we're selling $1,000 a day. And he was like, well, how can I help you? And I said, well, I'm sending all these invoices manually, and I really, I can't grow anymore. We can only send so many invoices. And he said, oh, I can write a program for that in, what'd you say, 2 or 3 days? He's still writing the program. That was 3 years ago. But he did. He jumped on that, and that quickly developed into I need an inventory management system. So I need to not oversell product. It can send all the invoices, but if it sends 100 invoices and only have 5 of the item, that's not good. And so we kept adding all of these features. But at that point, before we got this system, actually 60,000. Okay, so we were manually invoicing up to, like, we got to the point we were doing $60,000 a month in revenue with manual invoicing, and we had, like, peaked at that point. We switched over to the software from 60,000, and immediately the next month we more than doubled our sales. So automation is really, like, the turning point. I probably could have hired more people and maybe had the same results. I don't know.
Well, we'll cut back to some of that where you kind of went backwards for a little while there later on.
I'm sorry.
But, you know, one of the things I do want to point out there is you pretty much maxed out, like, bootstrapping capability. Like, it doesn't get any more bootstrapped than you're working at the hospital part-time, you're paying someone $8 an hour, and then you're also manually invoicing $60,000 worth of invoices on a monthly basis. Like, that's a pretty extreme amount where you're finally at your breaking point and something's got to give, right? You either can't grow any further and you just run yourself that hard, or you find the next solution. And thankfully, you guys found that solution, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there were nights here that I remember, and I don't know if any of you were using the co-working space at that time, but we were here until midnight. I mean, we were in this room opening boxes and counting product so that we would have enough to post, because we didn't have time to ship everything during the day and open new product. And we were here until, I mean, it was nothing to be here until midnight.
Yeah, for sure. And so as you got into the software side, I believe you almost doubled, like, the following month?
Yep, more than doubled the following month.
And so you just went on this insane kind of snowball effect of growth from there on forward. You continued to do a lot of the things that you did in the beginning, which I think is important to note. A lot of, like, the contests and things like that to grow your group. You know, as I was looking through the packet of information, it was interesting to me that you notated, like, all of these things. Oh, we went from this. We thought we want to go to 50,000 members in our group, and you overachieved the goal in 24 hours. Yeah. So ladies love their clothes, by the way. So you just had tremendous growth, and you really kept hammering the things that worked, and just, you know, I think, as Brandon would say, put the gas pedal down every time you saw something that moved you in the right direction. And so you went from this smaller 20,000, 60,000, 80,000. Suddenly you're looking at $500,000 a month, right? And so what was that like when you finally realized, what in the world is going on here? We were doing a tremendous amount of revenue a month. And I know you have to go to market, and Brandon would tell you, like, you have to buy this much clothes, and you're like,
oh my gosh, I used to call him from the bathroom. I would go to the bathroom at market, and so, like, market is where we go to decide what we're going to buy, like, clothing-wise, right? And we see samples, and then I remember calling Brandon from the bathroom and saying, like, I'm sick to my stomach because, and he's like, well, you have to buy more inventory. If you want to double your sales next month, you need to double your inventory. I'm like, I know, but this is a lot of money. Like, I remember writing my first $100,000 purchase order, and you're not swiping your card right then, but you're committing to buying that product. And I remember, like, being sick and telling Ashley at that time, like, we have to go back to the hotel room. Like, I'm physically, my stomach was, like, in knots. I was upset. Like, I was like, I can't do this, you know, because it's a lot. That's so much money, you know. But yeah, as we grew, I don't know, things happened really fast, and I brought a cheat sheet because I think the last 3 years have been a blur for me. I can't tell you dates. I don't know when things happened. I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention. I was just, like, looking at what had to be done right then to meet the next goal, if that makes sense. I wasn't tracking, like, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. And then one day I feel like I looked up and I was like, oh, crap. Like, we've got 15 employees and we need, I don't know, like a handbook or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that we should probably have, but you don't know what you don't know. And I was so just focused on the fires that needed to be put out and shipping clothing and buying more clothing and selling more clothing. And then, I don't know, I just looked up.
Well, and so let's talk about that growth for a second. So it took roughly about a year and a half of you, like, starting this thing with your friends and building a Shopify website to then getting to about $20,000 a month in revenue. And then over the next 2 years, you're able to achieve about $1 million a month in revenue. Okay, so that's a tremendous growth of 50x in that time frame. All right, so for those that might be a little more discouraged just starting out, thinking that they're stuck in this smaller rut and the big numbers will never come. Did you ever have any time where you find it really hard, like you thought maybe you just weren't cut out for it, or maybe you needed to quit?
Oh man, there were so many months when there weren't big numbers. I mean, I started this with $1,000 and that's all I had. Like, I didn't have extra money to put into it. And so there were so many months there I was like, I'm not sure that this is working. But I kept saying that if I could just keep the $1,000 going, I would keep doing it. And when I ran out, that was it, because I didn't have any more money and I wasn't going to take out a loan. And so I think that I would do whatever it took. Like, you just turn your inventory faster, you put it on sale faster, you figure out a way to make $40 so you can buy 4 more shirts. I mean, but yeah, there were so many days and hours and months where I would sit there and stare at the computer and go like, what am I doing? Like, why aren't there any sales? What am I doing wrong? Why aren't people commenting? And I just tried everything. Like, I would call my friends or my family, my now sister-in-law, and be like, can you please just comment on this and pretend that you want to buy it? Because if it seems like you're interested, then maybe somebody else will be interested in it. And so I would just ask anybody to like fake comment on stuff just to get momentum going. So I think that it forced me to think outside the box and just figure out like how to get another $50. How am I going to get another $100? When I started this, I had no idea that this is what it would come to. So my mind, was just trying to think of how to make another $50, and then it became $100, and then it became 500, and now I'm like, I hope we hit 1 million. But yeah, of course there were days like that. I think that if there weren't days like that, everybody would do this. And nobody would quit, right? It would be, if it was that easy, like everybody in this room would do it. But you just have to kind of tough it out and
Absolutely.
Keep your head down.
And they say, that every time a business doubles in size, you have to rethink what you're currently doing too, right? And I think that you've definitely rethought the way you're operating multiple times. Can you kind of walk us through some of the challenges that you faced as you've grown?
So many challenges. Yep. You're good. Uh-oh.
Red Infinity, anyone?
Red Infinity. So, we have a lot of jokes, like in the office, our family, with my husband, and one of them is that I focus on every fire that needs to be put out. I walk in the warehouse still every single morning, and I look around and I'm like, what's about to fall apart, and how can I help to fix it? That's how I start my day. Brandon is always focused on the next 3 months. I can't even think of it. I don't even know what month we're in to think about the next 3 months. And so I think that he was instrumental, because he was sort of behind me saying, like, you're doing a really good job, but what happens if Facebook, like, shuts down your group? Like, you've got employees now. Like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I got to get like 1,000 orders out the door today. I don't have time to think about that. And so when you say, like, did you reevaluate things? I think that I did, but usually it was at a time of crisis. Luckily, I have a husband who helped me plan things a little bit, and said, you maybe should think about getting an app going in case things go bad with Facebook. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Who do I call about that? I don't know anything about writing an app. Okay, well, you can afford to hire people at this point to do that. So I didn't purposefully reassess, and every time we doubled, but I think you're forced to at some point. Challenges are so many challenges. I remember when Carlos, our CFO, started last year. We were doing, I don't know, maybe $600,000 a month in revenue, and we were having a down month. And I remember sitting in the office with Carlos, and you don't know what you don't know. I looked at him and I said, how long can we go on like this? Because we were down. And he looked at me like I was a crazy person, but I didn't know. I mean, I knew that we had 20 employees out in the warehouse, and we had rent, and we've got all this inventory coming in, and all I know is our sales are down. And yeah, we were doing 600,000, but I was expecting that we were going to do 800,000 that month. And so I looked at, and I just asked, how long can we go on like this? Like, do we need to start thinking about, I don't know, like laying people off? I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So I think those are the challenges, are, finding the right people, when you don't know what to do, finding the people who do know what to do and bringing them on your team. And sales make that easy, right? If you're selling stuff and you're making money and you run into those challenges, then you can be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can hire somebody who does know what they're doing. When it becomes really challenging is when you don't have sales and you feel like you need to hire that person, because then how are you going to pay them? So I think that most of those problems are solved as long as you're selling something, you're making some kind of money. But there are there are so many challenges.
But I think it's a true testament to the one that you're human, and everybody stumbles through these same things in business as you're getting going. You're trying to find your way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're walking blind until you learn, and sometimes those things that you learn, maybe something simple like that, like hey, when do I need to start laying people off? Or wait, we have money in the bank. Like, this is going pretty well. We're just down a little bit, and we're not explosively growing this month. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that, even as a CEO of a very successful company, learning those lessons along the way, it's going to come, and a lot of people are afraid of with the what ifs beforehand, but you've already said, like, we hit all the what ifs. Like, we found it and we walked right through it.
Oh my gosh, if I knew all the challenges that I was going to run into ahead of time, I wouldn't have done any of this. I'm sure of it, because it would have petrified me. I mean, there's so many things that, if I would have thought about them ahead of time or known 3 years ago that those things were going to come up, I just would have been like, oh, this isn't for me. And even now, I have no idea. I mean, I say this every day, at least twice a day. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, my title is CEO, and I am on a conference call with people, and they're talking, and I don't have a clue what they're talking about, and I just had a Google tab open, and I was like frantically Googling like words that were coming out of their mouth to try to get on the same page. And I'm not even joking. Like, I don't have my own office. I share an office because we're out of space, and so there are at minimum 2 people in my office at all times, and it's hilarious because I must have this look on my face all the time on these calls, because I'm in over my head, you guys. I have no idea what they're talking about. And somebody asked me a question on a conference call today. We were talking about email marketing campaign, and they asked my opinion, and I said, I'm not sure that I have an opinion. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think it's okay to say that if you truly don't know what you're doing. And that's how I've just operated my business. I'm not afraid to say when I don't know what's happening around me or when I need help, and you just find someone who does know what's going on around you.
That's great advice. So you kind of hinted there for a second that as you guys kind of hit this explosive growth phase and you maybe plateaued a little bit, you also started pivoting and going in a slightly different direction and not relying solely on Facebook groups, right? So you actually started developing your own app, maybe with a little nudge from the guy to my right here. Can you tell us a little bit about how that process went? He mentioned, hey, maybe you should have an app, and then you launch into making your own app and starting pushing people towards that platform. What did that look like inside Divas?
Thinking from a customer standpoint, or like how did we develop an app?
Well, kind of both, because if you really look at it, you're trying to send them in a completely different direction than what they're used to. Like, they're used to getting on Facebook, watching these items be on there, and commenting. And you're telling them to go download this crazy app and start doing it on their phone, and you're like changing their experience completely, right?
Yeah. So lucky for us, Facebook was making changes anyway. And I say lucky for us, that's funny, right? But Facebook was already making changes. And so what was happening is our customers were used to getting 6 notifications from Facebook a day that said Amanda posted in Discount Divas, and then they knew that new arrival was there. And we're selling out of everything in like 15 to 30 minutes at this point that we're talking about, right? And so when Facebook started making changes, not everyone was getting that notification. We went from everyone getting a notification to some people sometimes getting a notification. And so our customers were emailing us and saying, like, why aren't you giving me the notifications anymore? And we're like, it's not us. We're trying to give you the notifications. It's Facebook. And so it kind of all happened at a really good time where we encouraged our customers, like, if you want those 6, if you want to be guaranteed to get the notification before it's sold out, then just download the app. It's an easier shopping experience. You can see what's in stock. There are all these cool features that you don't get on Facebook. And it made it easier for them to shop. They may not have known that they wanted that initially, but once they started using it, it was a lot easier, and they were guaranteed. We had this group of super fans that if we missed the post by 2 minutes, we were late, they were freaking out, like messaging us, like, what's wrong? What's going on? Or, is the system down? And so we kind of pushed them to get on the app to start with. It was our really loyal customers. And then we would do, sort of special things on the app. Like if we were having a sale, we might launch the coupon code on the app first. So you were incentivized if you had the app, because we want our customers to have the app, right? We own them a little bit more at that point. Or we might do a contest that involves taking a screenshot on your phone showing that you have the app downloaded, and then posting it on Facebook. But that's a fine line too, because you don't want to lose your Facebook engagement, because we know the more people comment, the more people see it. So it was really a fine line. From the development side, I truly don't know. I asked Brandon, he said, do you want me to put a team in place? And I said, sure. And then he said, what do you want it to look like? And I sketched very poorly on a piece of paper, and asked everybody around me for ideas. Do you think this is what it should look like? I'm not really sure. And everybody agreed, and it kind of happened. To be fair, I didn't have a lot of input. I was just trying to get the orders out the door. I mean, I really was just trying to get the orders out the door. So.
And so as you kind of went into focusing on both the app and the group there, at one point it came up where Facebook just up and made a huge change all in one day, and suddenly you weren't getting invoices for comments anymore, right? And so talk to me about the first 60 seconds of what your mind was doing.
April 4th, 2018. It's the worst day ever. No, it wasn't. I mean, that was a pretty terrible day. Because at this point, our system automatically posts for us. We tell it what we want it to post, and it posts to Facebook. And then it automatically reads the comments and sends the invoices for people who are still shopping on Facebook. So April 4th, we're having a great day. All is fine in the warehouse. And then suddenly, our post comments aren't being picked up. So people are emailing in saying, I commented on this, but when I click the link, there's nothing there for me. So I called Brandon, and he didn't answer. Never answers. So I called a second time, which is like emergency. If you call 2 times in a row, it's an emergency. Didn't answer. And so I looked at Ashley and said, keep calling Brandon. Just call him over and over again. And he said, because I thought it was our system. I thought there was a bug. That happens, right? And he called me back and he said, it's not a bug. Facebook's privacy issue that's happening right now has pulled the permission for us to read we could read the comment, but we didn't know who put the comment there. So that's a problem. So he said, the comments aren't going to be picked up. It's just not going to be picked up. And I think I sat there for maybe 3 minutes, and I was like, oh, crap. Now what? And I looked in the office, and I don't remember, there were a few people in there, Laura maybe, and Ashley, and a few of my people, and I said, well, we know what to do. We're going to send manual invoices. This is what we used to do. We're just taking it back. We're just going to go old school, and we're going to create manual invoices. It's not a big deal, right? And they were like, okay. So I said, could you just create a timesheet, a time slot sheet, and go around the warehouse to all, I don't care who you are, if you're in fulfillment, if you're in intake, if you take pictures, I don't care who it is, sign up for as many shifts as you want. You can have as much overtime as you want. Just sign up for a shift and you're going to send invoices. And we went to town training every employee in the warehouse on how to manually invoice people, and we started that day. Right then, you're taking this shift, and we went through and we just, we found a workaround, right? We just took it way back. It was not fun.
For comparison's sake here, when you said we can't do this anymore, that was $60,000 in revenue. When this happened, how much were you doing in revenue this month?
$800,000.
Okay, so over 10
And our
times.
average order is $28, so that's a lot of orders. I mean,
Yeah, so that's a tremendous amount of work. So kudos to you for sitting there for only 30 minutes instead of just pulling all your hair out and then finding a solution there. But it's great that you went back to, again, the things that have worked for you over time, right? You said we know exactly how to navigate this, and I think that that's important because, that's a huge pitfall. I mean, that's something that in business you're going to have a lot of what I call roadblocks, and you're going to have stumbling bumps here along the road. That's a roadblock if I've ever seen one. And so you navigated that flawlessly, I think. So,
thank you.
Good job.
I couldn't have done it without like everyone in the warehouse. It was all hands on deck for sure.
But I think it's important for people to see that, like, even the bigger businesses, when you're making the big numbers in sales, you're massively successful, right? From our eyes, you still have those same pitfalls and failures that come along the way. No one is perfect, and no one's just going to navigate it freely. So I wanted to point that out for everybody as well. So another thing that I think is really interesting about you and Discount Divas is that you and Brandon are like this entrepreneurial like power duo, and that's pretty cool, husband and wife, right? And so it's not often you have both husband and wife in entrepreneurship together or in business or like-minded like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's been kind of working together? Because, he developed Comment Sold, which is also proprietary software, what you guys have done and kind of spun off as well. So what was that like working together? And would you have any advice for someone who's working with their significant other?
I think that it has its moments where it's really difficult, honestly. But I think that it would be very hard for either one of us to be with anybody else because, nobody understands it better than Brandon. When I walk in, or when I call him at 7 o'clock and I'm like, sorry, I'm not coming home until, I don't know when, maybe 11 o'clock tonight. I can't leave the warehouse until this is taken care of. He's like, okay, like, it's okay. Or how can I help? So I think that it's really hard to find someone who really gets it because I think that it's fair to say, yeah, I get it. My husband would do that. I mean, this was years, you guys, that I said, I'm sorry, I can't go to this. And same for family events. I'm sorry, I can't go to dinner tonight. Like, I'm sorry, I have to miss this. I have to miss that. And so it's amazing in that sense because he gets it. And same, I get it when he said on Sunday, I'm going to go to San Francisco tomorrow morning. This is this past Sunday. I got to go. I forgot to tell you. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, that's the world that we live in. It's just so that we are focused on our business 100%. And so we get it. It does have, there are times when it's super challenging, right? Because we just say it's a season. It's like a season where I'm focused and I need him to be focused on my business too. And then I'll turn and say, okay, now it's like my business is taking a back seat and let's focus on your business and how can I help you with your business? And so we help each other a ton. We listen to each other. And I don't think that there's anyone else who would get it like he gets it. So I think it's awesome.
That's awesome. Can you give them a round of applause for that? So kind of moving right along here, we always tend to ask different speakers what they like to look for references for motivation or what information you've used kind of as resources. But you mentioned to me that you actually don't read a lot of books or listen to podcasts. So where do you kind of find the tools that you need to learn and improve yourself?
Yeah, I don't read books or I should. I'm not against them. It sounds bad. I live with a guy who reads a book or listens to a book a week. A business book every single week, and then he briefs me on it. And truly, he says, "Oh my gosh, I learned the coolest thing when I listened to this book today," and then he gives me like the quick abridged version, and it's like reading the book. That's true. Truth, right? He listens to a book a week. They have this thing that they do, and then I get the knowledge without reading. I cheat.
Yeah. Watch out, Cliff Notes. B Kruse notes coming in. All right. So for those of you out there that are looking for maybe the kind of success that Divas had in boutiques, Amanda, I'd like for you to kind of give them some advice about kind of building and growing a following in like a 2018 environment, these days? Because even for myself, like I've been in business for 10 years now, the landscape in 2009 looks completely different than the landscape in 2018. We've got a lot of people actually in this room who may be working on online businesses now. Can you give them some pointers on what they should do?
Yeah, I think it's different. It's ever changing. And I have actually done a really bad job of branding myself and creating a personal following. I think that is super important. And so I think that as you grow your brand, don't forget about growing your personal brand, because the way it is now, people want to see your life. And oftentimes that's why they're buying the product. It's you that they're buying it from, because the reality is they could buy the exact same product at 100 different places, and so they're choosing to shop with you. And so I think that grow your personal brand and put yourself out there, as uncomfortable as it is. And I am bad at that. I don't put myself personally out there, but that's the advice that I would give to someone right now, is you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to do the lives. You've got to do the behind the scenes. You have to let your customer feel like they are part of your life and that they have a behind the scenes look all the time, because that's what they're doing. People aren't watching TV anymore. You are, but people are watching Insta stories and they're watching Facebook stories, and that's where they're absorbing all of their content. That's what they're focused on. And so if you want to stay relevant, you have to be in front of their face all the time.
You just jumped on camera and we're a natural, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No. And this is my biggest fear, is public speaking too. So, but.
Well, that's great advice though, because I think for most people, walking in front of a camera and talking.
Yeah. But you know what?
Natural.
Your customers don't want that. They don't want to see an actress or a perfectionist. That's not why they want to see the real you, and they want to feel like they're connecting to a real person, someone that they can relate to. So they like it when we mess up on camera, and when I accidentally call things something that sounds inappropriate on camera, and not on purpose, but they think it's funny because they realize that I'm a real person and I'm not rehearsed. And, I think that's what people want to see now. So that would be my number one.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Is there any bad advice you think that's out there for people that are starting an online business, or maybe even specifically in the boutique industry?
I think that people, specifically in the boutique industry, I think people aren't doing their own thing as much, and they think that if my margins aren't this, I can't make it work, or if my markup isn't this, there's no way it'll work, because that's what people are saying and that's what people have trained you to do. And I disagree with that. My margins have always been below average, but I've always thought that if I could sell 3 times as much as anybody else, I can make it work. So I think that do your own thing. Don't, just because somebody says that this is industry standard and this is how you have to do it and this is how you're going to be successful, that doesn't mean that that's the only way to do it. Do your own thing.
Absolutely. Well, and to back that up, do you mind just briefly talking about, you were recently acquired, and the parent company also has another boutique, but they are not anything like Divas, right? Even the way they operate and sell to their customers is not like Divas. And I thought that was very interesting that they're larger than you, right? So there's a company larger than Discount Divas.
Just barely, and I am chomping at the bit to pass them.
And all of theirs is online sales. Did I remember that correctly? Mm-hmm. So they don't do Facebook comment selling at all. And they've been able to grow in this same year of age, and without the same technology that she's built her entire business off of these last several years. So I think it's very important to note that and that's great advice, is to do your own thing and don't think that there's one single standard of doing it to be successful, right?
That's right.
And so we talked about the earlier days and some of the numbers. Do you mind telling a little bit about you actually went to sell the business, okay, and so get valuation, find a seller, and then you had multiple sellers coming through, interviewing you. Can you give them a little bit of privy to what that looks like on the inside? Yeah.
So Brandon had always kind of been in my ear, if you get to this level, if you get to $1 million a month in revenue, that's really a sellable company. He kind of kept saying that to me. And honestly, all I heard was, can you get to $1 million a month in revenue? Like, can you do it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we can do it. So I never thought that was like a real thing. In my mind, like, I heard him and there was a goal of getting to $1 million a month, but there wasn't necessarily a goal of selling the business in my mind. But we got to that number, or really close to that number, sort of in the $900,000 a month range. And we decided, maybe we should explore the options and see what are out there. Let's take a little bit of risk off the table, maybe, and just see what's out there. And so we went through our attorneys, someone that they recommended, and it was a grueling process. I mean, it was a lot. There were multiple meetings. So you have this, they have to put together this book about your business. And so they ask you for all this information, like what date, what month did this happen? You're like, I don't know. So you're going through and you kind of put together this book that you approve, and then they send it out to people to see if there's interest. And I could be saying this wrong, and if I am, I'm sorry. But they send it out to see if there's interest, and people come back and they sort of say, yeah, I'm interested, if what you're saying is true, I'm interested, and here's sort of the range that I think that you're worth. Okay. And once you get these ranges, and then people start to come visit, and they all want to do dinner with you, and they want to tour your warehouse, and they want to be like all up in your business. And I am used to just working in my business every day. That's what I do. And so we sort of had to stop and do these tours and schmooze a little bit, if you will.
And that can be exhausting, right? I mean, they're literally picking you apart.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, they're asking you questions that maybe you don't know the answer to.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we went through and we got some initial range offers, a bunch of them. And I had a gut feeling from the beginning. And I think Brandon knew. Ashley was there at those meetings, and I knew from the beginning if we were going to do a deal, these are the people we were going to do it with, because I knew what I didn't want. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want corporate guys coming in with suits and ties. We work in leggings and t-shirts. Like, we're on the ground. Like, I knew what I didn't want. And so I knew when they walked in, if I was going to do a deal, these were the people that I was going to do it with. And so the question was, are they going to make a fair offer? And are we kind of going to be on the same page of how we're going to grow the business and that sort of thing? And so we went back and forth, and they made a good offer. Wasn't the best offer. We had several higher offers for more money, but I really felt that it was the best decision for the business. And so that's what we went with.
And this time frame started and took how long?
A year.
A year.
We were doing this for a year. I mean, it was people in and out of the warehouse, emails back and forth, conference calls. I remember doing one at the house, the first one. I was so nervous because they rattled off the companies that they had invested in, and I had heard of all of them, which is scary to me because I'm like, oh, they've invested in some really big, like major companies. And I remember sitting at home, we had a conference call, and I was sitting there, and Brandon's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I am so nervous. And just, what are they going to ask me? Like, what do I say? And he's like, you're going to be fine. Like, this is your business. But I'd never done it before. It was really scary. So yeah, this process took a year from start to finish, actually like a year and 3 months. From day one until money in the bank.
Well, and to peel back the layers just a little bit too, again, I think people see CEOs as this very polished, professional, calm, collected, cool-headed person that just goes through and just thinks you just glance through all of this, right? And it was a walk in the park. But really, like you said, you're nervous. I mean, and you have a lot of pressure on you at this time too. If sales dip now what? They don't want to buy anymore? I mean, so how did you feel as those ebbs and flows of sales came along during this process?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was like you have to keep your sales up because we were working with, what are they called? Investment bankers who were representing us. And so they were like, you have to keep your sales up. You have to stay on this growth, chart that they created, by the way. And so I was like, okay. And so we're doing everything we can do. I'm like, we have to hit these numbers because they're not going to be interested. If we're not hitting our projections that these people think we created, we didn't, but they think that we did, like, why would they want to invest in us? And so for the first about 6 to 8 months, I was super stressed, trying to hit our numbers, like trying to do everything just right. And then I think one day Brandon and I looked at each other and I said, I don't have to sell this thing. Like, we're making money. This isn't a fire sale. I mean, we're profitable, like really, we're profitable. And I'm not unhappy. We just wanted a bigger team of resources to come in so that we could get to the next level. But there was sort of this moment where we looked at each other and I was like, it's not, if I have to worry that much about it, it's not worth it. And at that moment, when they called and said, you have to pull the levers, my answer was, I pull the levers every day. I'm already doing that. I'm doing the best I can do. Thanks. I mean, because at some point I always work at 100%. There's never a day where I don't try my hardest to hit my sales goals. So the pressure of that really, at some point I decided that's it. Like, I'm done having the pressure. If it sells, that's great. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. Like, this is a really good business that we've got.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for that too, that that's also very integral of you. I mean, a lot of people try to do like a smoke and mirrors show when they're trying to sell a business and make it seem like something it's not, right? And at the end of the day, you're like, hey, this is me. It's kind of like, trying to impress a future boyfriend or girlfriend, right? You're like trying to showboat, and then eventually they're going to have to like the person you are, right?
That's
so
right.
they've got to like the person that Divas is
That's
if
right.
they're actually going to buy this thing. And so kudos to you for saying, hey, I pull the levers every day. Like, I love that statement right there.
Thanks. But yeah, in the beginning, I felt like, okay, you told me to pull the levers. I'm going to pull the levers. But thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So something you mentioned to me during lunch last week was that you grew up in a kind of a strict household.
Yeah.
Your father was British military.
That's right.
And he said something to you that kind of lent to your work ethic over time. Can you
Yep.
share that with the audience?
Yeah. So, and one of the things that Matt and I talked about at lunch the other day is, and I think that we shared this, is I have never, even in school and in sports, I've never tried out or attempted to do something that I wasn't 95% sure that I would be successful at. Like, if I'm not going to be good at it, I just kind of won't do it. But yeah, in my house, one of the things that my dad has always told me since I was little is you can be anything that you want to be. It doesn't matter what it is. But whatever you choose, you have to be the best at it. So, and he would always tell me, if you want to be a janitor, that's fine. That's great. But you need to be the best janitor that has ever been. That's how I work. That is my work ethic. Or I think it is. I hope that people who see me work agree. But that's one of the things that I take pride in is no matter what I'm doing or what I'm working on, I will work myself to death to be the best that there is at that trade or at that, business.
I love that statement right there. If you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor you can be. I think we could all take that to heart a little bit more and carry that forward. So you've had a kind of a short, but what seems lengthy when we talk about it on a timeline of all the things you've done in the last several years here. But what has been your favorite thing about Divas over time?
Oh my gosh, my team of people. I love going to work every day. And I loved working in the ER. Just to be fair, that wasn't bad. I enjoyed the camaraderie and the teamwork in the ER. But our office is a family, and it is. I love to go to work every day. I may not love what I'm doing that day. I hate being on conference calls more than anything on the planet. But I do enjoy being at work every day. I love all of the people that I work with, and it is it's a fantastic atmosphere. And so, number one, the team of people that are around me.
And if we've got anybody that works with Divas right now, could I just have you stand up in the room, please? Yeah, I'm calling you out. Can you just stand up? I see Maddie disappeared there.
She had to go to class.
Oh, okay. So countering that statement too, what was your biggest mistake over time?
Probably working in the business and not on the business. And I will probably, again, Brandon told me months and months ago, you really need to focus. on the business, on the growth, on the bigger picture, and not stickering items. It drives him crazy. And but you can find me most of the time in the warehouse working on whatever needs to be worked on. So if we're backed up in intake, I'm going to grab boxes, pull them out to the front. I'm going to unpack them. I'm going to sticker them. If we're backed up in fulfillment, I'm shipping out packages that day. And I do have to, do the conference calls and do all the other things that I don't want to do, but that's what I enjoy going back to. And so that's probably my biggest mistake, because the growth that we had was without me focusing on growth. I mean, I spent some time focusing on like a contest, but it was we need to run a contest. Let me put one together really quickly. There was no strategy of growth. There was no sitting around a room going like, what's our growth strategy right now? Like, that didn't happen. It was like, engagement's down on Facebook. Let's do a post. Let's do something about it. It's very reactive. And so I can't imagine where we would be if halfway through the process I really would have sat down and focused on, the growth of the business. But we may not have had as amazing of a team if I did that, because I think one of the reasons that everybody loves working there is because I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty, and I will help them in any way I can. So it's a trade-off.
For
but
sure.
that would
and
probably
I think while
be
that's
it.
great advice, that you should be focusing on the direction for the business and trying to lead from the outside and work on the business, I think that your passion carries you through businesses like this, right? That's what makes it through the hard times, and that's also what leads the team behind you. You're leading by example, like you said, and I think that's crucially important for people to understand. So just a couple things to close up here. For anyone starting their business or that's looking to leave their normal job, maybe they're working on kind of a side gig right now, what advice would you have for them to kind of look at that transition, or how to approach that transition?
I think it's different for everyone. I'm going to start by saying that, because if you are married and you don't really need your income to support your household, that's very different than someone who is single paying their own mortgage. So I would say work as long as you can at your guaranteed job, and spend every hour that you have outside of that job working on your business, and literally get it to the point where you can't do both. And then if you can go part-time, go part-time, if you're relying on that income. If you're not relying on that income, then it's probably a heck of a lot faster to grow your business to leave your job up front. But if you're reliant on that, I think it's so important not to rob your business in the beginning. And the only reason that I could continue to buy new inventory is I wasn't relying on a paycheck from my business for a very long time. I didn't, take any of the money out of the business. I just kept buying new inventory to sell. And so I would say maximize the hours that you have before you just up and leave your job. That's personal choice for me. That's not right for everyone, but that's what worked for me.
I think that's great advice. Guys, would you give her a quick round of applause? All right, so we're going to take some questions from the audience now. Guys, just raise your hand if you have a question for Amanda.
Oh, boy.
Yes, sir.
Especially early on, what do you look for when you hire employees? What qualities, traits, abilities, etc.?
Yep.
Really question as well.
Can I repeat it?
Yes. Or give it my word.
He said specifically early on, when you're hiring an employee, what qualities or traits do you look for? Hardworking and loyal. I can teach everything else that I know. So that's not the case when I was hiring a bookkeeper, because I didn't know what I was doing. But in the beginning, when I was just looking for an employee, I looked for someone who would be super loyal and was very hardworking and honest. And you need people to show up on time, but I find that if you find a hard worker, they're going to show up on time. And if you find someone who's loyal, they're going to be honest. So hardworking, loyal, and you can literally teach the rest. Because if they're willing to work hard enough, they'll learn whatever you want them to learn. They'll figure it out.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, Cole.
Yeah, so I got two. So you recently sold. After you sold, did you sort of sit back, okay, I've made it, or is it time to keep going? What was the mindset change? Okay, now was it kind of relaxed? And then also, you seem extremely competitive. Can you talk about how competitive you are and how competition has played into your personality?
If you saw my husband's reaction to that question. That's true. Okay, so your first question was, after I sold, did I just kind of sit back and that was your question, right? I made it. Okay, so I'll start by saying I only sold 60%. So I rolled forward, is that how I say it? 40%. I'm still learning the terms. No, I didn't sit back. I didn't even take a day off. I feel more pressure now than I did before. That's my personality. They don't put the pressure on me at all. They're super laid back. But my personality is somebody trusted me with a lot of money to continue to make this business successful. And so I want to make sure that I don't let anyone down. And so, no, I haven't had the moment. I thought I would. We had this conversation because we closed, did all our paperwork one day, but the funding wasn't coming until the next day. And so after we closed and we did all the paperwork, I was like, oh, I don't have that feeling. Where's the feeling? I should feel different. And so I thought it was because the money hadn't hit the bank account yet. And so then the next day, Brandon and I are driving down the road, and I refreshed my bank account, and it was there. And I looked at it, and there was a moment I was like, holy crap, this is a lot of money. But that was it. And then I looked at Brandon, and I said, I don't feel different. Am I supposed to feel different? And he sort of laughed. He was like, no, it's, kind of all the same. There's a sense of security. I don't have to, there things that I may have worried about before that I don't necessarily have to worry about now financially. But I think that my personality, the pressure that I put on myself to be successful, to continue to push the business forward, is huge. So there's not been a moment where I sort of sat back and enjoyed it. I don't think I'll have that moment until, and there's no plans for this, but until I step out of the business. I don't think I'll have that moment. So, and your second question, I'm so sorry, I already forgot. Competitive.
How's that played into your business?
Yeah, I am super competitive. I have been my whole life. I don't know if that's how I was raised or it's just how I am, but I'm extremely competitive. Brandon makes fun of me, but he says, if you want me to be successful at something, tell me that, or question if I can do it or not, and I will do it, and I will blow the roof off of it, because that's my personality. I like to prove people wrong, and I'm ultra competitive. And my team that I don't know why it worked out this way, but the team that I've surrounded myself with is also extremely competitive. And so I think it's had a huge impact on our success. I want to beat ourselves. So I want to beat last month's sales, and I break that down every day. So we have a monthly goal to beat last month's sales, and then I divide that out by the days of the month, and I have that number, and I don't want to get behind for one single day because it's hard to make up. So it is like a constant, and then I break it down per hour. So by 10 a.m., I know where I need to be in my numbers in order to hit that day's goals. And if I'm not there by 10 a.m., if we're not, just be completely transparent, if we're not at $10,000 in sales by 10 a.m., I'm doing something. There's an action happening. I'm like, okay, what do we need to do? Is engagement down on Facebook? Do we need to launch a contest? Do we need to post? Is everything selling out? We need to post another product. What's happening? And then there's another level throughout the day, and that just continues through every single day, 7 days a week. I know I'm crazy. I'm sorry.
I love the competitive atmosphere. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
When you're looking at, maybe my sales are at $10,000 at 10 a.m., do you ever ask yourself, to what end am I doing this? Is it purely always been, let me one-up my sales from last time, or let me see how much more I can do, how much more money I can generate? But to what end?
Yeah, it's fun to me. I know that sounds crazy, and it's not about the money, because before we sold, I paid myself $60,000 a year. That was it. It didn't matter how much we were doing in sales. I didn't take distribution. I paid myself $60,000. It's what I needed to live. It's not about the money. It's fun for me. I get excited and a rush to see if we're gonna beat last month's sales, or if we're gonna hit this month's goals. And so I don't think so. I never kind of have that mentality, because I enjoy hitting those goals and pushing myself. So I don't know. I like it.
Good question, though.
It is a good question.
Yeah, Tony.
Do you still like to shop?
I love to shop. Yeah, on the weekends, if I'm doing anything on the weekends, I'm shopping. Yeah, I love to shop. I don't know.
Just because I'm curious, what's
Yeah.
the average repurchase rate for a customer per month?
Per month, lifetime is 27.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I have them, but in the office, but I don't know them off the top of my head.
Per month, I think it's 2.5.
So loyal customers.
Yeah.
Our top customer has bought 1,173 times.
There you go. Our top customer has purchased 1,173 times. Individual orders, not products. So that's
Sir,
probably more products.
you had a question?
I do have a question. So you kind of spoke earlier about, working and then hiring that first employee. Can you talk a little bit about deciding what tasks to shed, right?
Oh, man.
Point there where it's kind of tricky, right? So based on how you kind of explain things as far as personality-wise, right? You know that, hey, if I'm going to have this person do invoicing, I'm afraid if this person messed that up, because that affects payroll, it affects, can you talk to that?
Yeah. And I am, it seems like we think alike because I have a very hard time delegating tasks out to people. I've really tried to get better at it, but I don't trust, a lot of people to do important things. So I would find myself continuing to do everything. I think that the more, this isn't a great answer, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So you just have to start with something, like delegate something, and you'll figure out like, okay, so I would delegate to Ashley. And I know I mention her a lot, but she's my right hand. She's been with me for years now, since we were in this closet in here. And so I delegated out to her, and she did a good job, and I knew that I could trust her, so I would give her kind of like another little piece to test out. So I would start with the things that, not that don't matter, but like if there's a mistake that's made, it's not a big deal. And you'll just continue to do that. It's really hard. I still have a really hard time with that. There are still things that I do every single day that I should not be doing, but I am afraid to delegate them, or I only feel comfortable delegating them to one person, and that one person's plate is so full, so I just keep it to myself.
And I would like to comment on that as
I'm
well.
bad
that
at it.
I think it's Zig Ziglar has the rule: if someone can do something 80% as well as you can do it, you let that person do the task. And another thing, just to put in perspective, that Amanda has told me is when she was working in the hospital, the worst day or the worst that could happen was somebody would die. The worst that's going to happen now is someone gets shipped the wrong package, and that's really not a big
It's
deal in the scheme of
perspective.
things.
It is
So,
perspective.
When she says like the importance of a task, I think it's important to reel it back in your head a little bit too, and look like nobody's dying over this decision, right? That's a good day.
Yeah. I think my hardest one was payroll, like passing off payroll to be processed. And that was really tough. But we have a really good bookkeeper who had been there for like, I don't know, a year before I passed off payroll to her. And I knew how kind of like OCD she was. And then I just put another layer in place. And so one person runs the timesheets and verifies them, and the other person enters them into the payroll system. So I'll like break it up a little bit so it's not one task on one person. There's like a little bit of a checks and balance kind of situation, if that makes sense.
So I want to ask you a question real
Oh.
quick. On the way here, actually, I received an email with an interesting question posed to any entrepreneur, and that's if you were to lose everything today, all of your finances, your network, the groups, the business, all of that, and all you had was a roof over your head,
Yep.
a landline,
Okay.
an internet connection, and maybe like a month subscription to ClickFunnels, what would you
I
do
don't
for
know
the
what
first 30
ClickFunnels
days?
is. Should I know what ClickFunnels? I don't know what ClickFunnels are. Whatever. What was the question?
What would you
That
do
last
for the
part?
first 30 days to build back from zero?
Do I have like anything?
No.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
I would start in social media again. I've got something that I can sell. There's got to be something. Okay, I would find stuff on the side of the road that I could pick up and sell it so that I could get a little bit of money so that I could get something else that I could sell. It's like probably not the answer you're looking for, but that's probably what I would do. I'd go find, I know that I can sell stuff to people. And so it's just getting my hands on something that I can sell. And you can sell everything for something. So I would probably go out and find stuff laying around on the side of the road, or I would ask people if they have anything that they are willing to donate to me so that I could try to sell it to make some money. And then I would buy more stuff to sell.
Awesome.
Probably clothing, because that's what I know.
All right, we'll take 2 more questions.
So now that you sold part of the company, what's changing? Like, is anything changing about the business model, or is it business as usual?
So the question is, since I sold part of the company, what's changing? Is anything changing about the business model, or is it business as usual? They want me to keep doing exactly what I've been doing. So that was one of my questions, is day one when I walk back in, what am I supposed to do? And the answer was, keep doing what you've been doing. That's the business that we bought. They want me to keep selling, keep engaging with the customers. There are some things changing. I am supposed to be stepping out of the day-to-day operations a little bit so that I can focus on the bigger picture. So I'm training someone within the company to move them up into that position. So that's been a little bit different, is trying to get someone to think the way that I think when I walk into the building in the mornings. But not really. I'm on a lot of calls, and there are so many emails that come to me now that I have to respond to. So for my day-to-day, there's just more focused on growth. So email marketing campaign, like I've never done that before. So we don't send out emails. So we need to do that. And Facebook ads. We don't run a lot of Facebook ads. I mean, like, not really any at all. We should do that. So I'm now focusing on those sort of things and engaging with companies that can help me do that, because I don't know what I'm doing in those areas. And so a little bit of the day-to-day, but there's no change in the business model. They want us to keep doing exactly what we're doing, just sell more product. I mean, that's the goal. So about the same.
All right, one last question. Yes, sir.
Companies that you sold 60%, did they bring something to the table to help you grow?
Yes. So they specialize in, they only invest in e-commerce businesses or companies. And so they will be bringing a team to the table to help me grow. So that was what I wanted. I want someone in the business who knows more than I do about business in general. I know that I will probably know more about my business, but I really wanted someone that I could ask questions to and have more resources. And so we're in the process of hiring a CEO, not for my company, but for the parent company that holds Discount Divas and, I can say, right, and Lime Lush Boutique, which is another boutique, an online clothing boutique. So we're putting a CEO in place there, which will be a mentor for me. So I'm super excited about that. And then we are like hiring some like development team, different things that we don't have in place now. When we sold part of the business and they also acquired Lime Lush at the same time, it gave us more cash to be able to hire those people that maybe just my company wouldn't have been able to do alone. So when we kind of are both under the same umbrella, now we sort of have more resources to hire some higher level people. So we're in the process of doing that. This has only been, we sold in June, end of June. So we're like, it just happened.
Well, guys, Amanda, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're going to close up questions for now, but if you have any questions after the fact, feel free to come up here and ask her if you'll stick around for a little bit. Guys, would you just give her one last round of applause? Thank you so much again.
Thank you,
Really
Matt.
appreciate your time.
It's been awesome.
And we have workshops all around the building. There's a busy night tonight, so if you guys want to check in the lobby there, you'll see a kind of a menu of everything that's going on in the times and what rooms those are located in.